So I'm here with Francisco Sanclemente in the age of COVID. Francisco, first, congratulations not only on your auction, but I understand that you have a newborn at home, and so because of that, I'll keep my mask on during the interview. So I really appreciate your time here today in Bogotá, coming into the office just for us at Finance Colombia. You're head of Renovatio. If you could first start off by telling us a little bit about Renovatio. I know who you are, both personally and the company, but if you could start by giving us a brief introduction of Renovatio's heritage, a little bit of your background and what Renovatio does here in Colombia.
All right. Thank you, Loren. Thank you for having me and for congratulating me on my newborn. That's why we're taking so many precautions. Indeed, I'm the general manager of one line of business that Renovatio has here in Colombia. Renovatio arrived in 2013, mainly to develop wind projects in La Guajira. But it also started an energy supply company, and that's where we're sitting now. There are two independent businesses. One develops wind projects in La Guajira, as I already mentioned. Those projects that Renovatio developed in the government auction last year, 60% of the capacity that was awarded in that auction was developed by Renovatio, mainly the 4 projects, 2 of them that were sold to Celsia, and 2 of the other projects that were sold to EDPR, Energy of Portugal Renewables. And then we have another line of business, of which I'm general manager, which is the energy supplying company. And that's the company that is launching the auction. This company started also in 2013, mainly trading energy in the wholesale market, getting into final users or supplying energy directly to final users in 2015, first in the non-regulated market and then in the regulated market in 2017. We have had a tremendous growth over the years. So even this year, despite COVID, we will be twice the size we had in December of last year. And by year end, we will be the 3rd largest independent energy supplying company in Colombia, supplying energy to final users.
Well, so the company has done a lot in just a short time in arriving to Colombia. Now, you guys recently had I believe it's the first private renewable energy auction in Latin America last week. So congratulations for that. I was glad I was able to attend. You guys were able to do everything remotely, which was great. Tell me about why you saw a need for such an auction and what the purpose, the proposal of that auction is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, renewable energy in Colombia is very interesting because everybody keeps talking about the potential we have as a country, but it really hasn't taken off to the extent that everybody was waiting a few years ago. Because there are a lot of foreign investors that have watched the progress of renewable energy in the country, international banks, you name it. Everybody is waiting to see what is going to happen. Obviously, the reason why we're doing the auction is a commercial reason, because obviously we're a private business and we want to first increase our profitability, but also provide competitive tariffs and clean energy to our final users. But also, we identified an opportunity in the market and we wanted to exploit it. And I'll explain that more in detail. The reason why renewables hasn't taken off in Colombia is because there are 3 main obstacles to renewable energy. The first two that are shared pretty much everywhere around the world, and the third one that is perhaps more specific to Colombia. So the first 2 is communities and environmental licenses, and every country has that. Some are faster, some are slower, but everybody has to do that process everywhere in the world. The second one is connection to the system. Again, some countries do it faster, others slower, but everybody's got to do it. You need the technical feasibility of whether the project can be connected to the grid. Once projects surpass those first 2 obstacles in Colombia, then they face the third obstacle, and it's perhaps the one that has been a bit more tricky for projects to overcome, which is the PPA. Right? How to sell their energy into the future so that the banks can finance their projects and they can build their projects and get it into operation.
To save some viewers the embarrassment that I had when I first heard the term, that's power purchase agreement, right?
Indeed, yeah, exactly. Why is it difficult in Colombia to sign a PPA? Well, there are three main reasons why it is difficult. The first one is the mentality of the energy market in Colombia. Since the crisis of 1994, companies have preferred to sign short-term contracts because of the belief that since you don't know what the price is going to be in 10 years, you don't want to commit to a contract now with the chance that you will pay higher energy prices in the future than the ongoing rate.
Right.
And that mentality is rooted so deeply that perhaps a long-term contract here, if you mention a long-term contract, or if you would have mentioned a long-term contract 5 years ago, people would have understood 4 to 5 years, perhaps even 3, right? Of the more than 100 auctions for the regulated market that there have been since mid-2018 until now, only 12% of the energy awarded in those tender processes have been for more than 5 years. And the majority, 60% of them, have been contracts of 1 to 2 years, right? So that tells you how strong the mentality towards short-term contracts has been. And obviously you cannot finance a renewable energy project with a contract of 1 to 5 years. It's not possible.
Have people offset that in the past? And I don't know how advanced the energy derivatives market is in Colombia, but are people able to arbitrage that risk and say, maybe I'm going to enter into a contract, but I'm also going to hedge it? Or I don't know, maybe that level of liquidity or that market or that, those derivative structures don't exist here. I don't know.
They do exist. They do exist. You have futures market for energy. The problem is that it's very liquid. That's the first problem. The second problem that it has is that because of the structure of the market, everybody tends to have to want to go in the same direction at the same time.
There's no counterparty.
So you don't find the counterparty, or the spread between the offer and the ask price is too wide to reconcile. So you cannot at this point in time in Colombia, you cannot plan strategies using futures. You won't find the offer that you need to develop those strategies.
Understood.
Okay, so that's the first problem with finding a long-term PPA. The second one is difficult to find a large off-taker that will sign a long-term PPA, right? And the large off-takers that are starting to get interested into renewable energies, they are building their own projects or commissioning a third party to build their own project anyway.
Okay.
Right? Reducing the pool of potential off-takers that a developer could have to sell their energy. And the third obstacle is the structure of the market, because the regulated market in Colombia, which is consumption under 50,000 kilowatts hour per month, you cannot aggregate it, right? So let's say you have 2,000 stores nationwide, but every individual store has a consumption below 50,000 kilowatts per hour.
Right.
You cannot aggregate that demand and negotiate a long-term contract.
Okay.
Because you fall within the regulated market. And the regulated market doesn't allow the users of energy to negotiate their energy. And they don't have contracts. They only have they have contracts, but they're like the telecommunication contracts,
right,
where the final users have an open-ended contract with a minimum permanence.
Right.
That's what you have. So one of those large, that would be large if you aggregate all demand in the regulated market, even if they wanted to sign a long-term contract of taking the energy of a single project, that would be outside of the scope of the regulation, right? So that already leaves half of the energy of the country, or about half of the energy of the country, outside of that scope. And so that's when we started to think, all right, there are over 100 renewable projects that are being developed in Colombia that already have a connection approved to the grid. They can connect anytime now, but they cannot sign or or they don't have a contract, an energy, a PPA, and they cannot find.
They don't have a solid purchaser.
Exactly. So what we thought is, all right, let's make a tender of those projects. Let's organize our own tender where we would be the off-taker. And, well, I forgot to mention, last year there was the government auction, right? It was very successful. 9 projects were awarded there. There were over 100 projects that were eligible, but then the government hasn't signaled that they will do any more auctions. Instead, they have signaled that it would be the private sector that should take it from there, right? Trying to break that circle of short-term contracts, right? The prices that were awarded in that government auction are 30% below the ongoing rates of contracts in the energy market in Colombia right now. So what we thought is, all right, if we can get those prices or something that looks like those prices, that would be something very good for us. And at the same time, we will be providing a mechanism for these projects to sell their energy long term and finance their projects. So it's a win-win.
Exactly. I would also imagine that, obviously not in this auction particularly, but that where Renovatio and companies like Renovatio have value is that, let's suppose I'm a transportation company or a petroleum company, and I'm trying to reduce my carbon footprint, then I can say, look, I want to buy renewable energy. And I want to make sure that the renewable energy, and even for larger consumers that can go to the unregulated market, whether it's through an auction mechanism or not. I know that the auction is more for the sell side in this particular case, but still, one of the values that a company, or one of the functions that a company like Renovatio has, is it enables a grocery store chain, I don't know, Olympic or somebody like that, can say, we want to reduce our carbon footprint, and so we want to purchase this energy and make sure, or maybe we have a presence in the Caribbean, and so La Guajira, we can come back and say, listen, we are using the energy that's coming off of this wind farm, so it does have a local impact. And I would imagine that there's a lot of interest and growing interest in not just the financial part of it, but the ecological aspect of what Renovatio is doing.
Exactly. Renewable energy is in our DNA. I mean, Renovatio arrived in Colombia to develop wind projects. And if we could, we would be supplying 100% renewable energy now. That's our goal, but we cannot do it right now because there are only a handful of renewable energy projects operating in the country, right? So there's got to be a transition period until we get there. But that's also one of the reasons why we wanted to be the first having a renewable energy auction, a private one, because we want to be the first ones to get there. We want to give renewable energy to our final users, and we have seen that in the past year or so, companies are increasingly more interested in acquiring clean energy.
Great. I think it's good because it really provides now a mechanism. It provides for better financing options for project developers for renewable projects. It provides certainty, but then it allows, in the longer term, I think by doing it the way that you all are doing it, it creates more opportunity in that you can have the larger providers, of course, can participate, but you can have smaller energy providers that may want to participate. On the buy side, not with this particular auction, but if you look at how this impacts the market structure, you're going to be able to have smaller businesses then say, we want to make sure that the electricity that we purchase in Colombia is renewable, is green energy, and companies like Renovatio enable that and make that a possibility.
Absolutely. The world is heading in that direction. I mean, you see it in Japan, China, all these countries are saying that they will be carbon neutral by 2050. Colombia, we don't have, it's not as important here as in other countries because traditionally the grid of Colombia has been clean. 80% of the energy that is generated in Colombia traditionally comes from water resources. Right? But that has been declining over time. So if you were to, or se me va el inglés a veces. Back in 2000, when you compare the water reserves in the country with the demand, you saw that those water resources would last for 13 weeks of demand, right? So if you wanted to put that water reserves in terms of a battery,
Right.
and how many weeks of demand it will give me, it was 13. This year we're down to 5 or 6.
Wow.
And if it wasn't for COVID, we would be down to 4.5. Because the lockdown has really saved us from a stress in the electricity market in Colombia.
Right.
If it wasn't for COVID, we could have had water reserves down to 40-45% but in mid-July, but it did drop to 50, right? And so you see a clear trend. If you see the graph, you see a clear trend going from 13 back into 2000 to 5 to 6 this year, because you're constantly adding more demand and not necessarily you're adding the same amount of reserves.
Right.
We were hoping to do it with Ituango, but Ituango hasn't happened. And it's been already 2-3 years, 4
Delayed.
years.
Yeah, delayed.
And it's expected to be delayed at least until 2022, 2023. Nobody really knows.
Right.
So that is going to make that number of weeks that you can supply demand with water is going to keep reducing, right? So it's the perfect moment to introduce renewables. It's not a matter of whether we have a clean grid or not, because right now we do.
Right.
It's the matter of, can you sustain it over time? As demand keeps growing and economies keep developing, can you sustain that clean grid? And you definitely need renewables.
Right.
And the market needs mechanisms like the one we have devised to offer alternatives to these projects to overcome the obstacle of the PPA.
So if you could just briefly explain to us, I know that the auction launched last week. I think that, so what's the timeline then? So companies need to submit their bid, which is in the form, I think, of a proposal, and then there's an adjudication process, and then there's a reward process. And if you could give me a brief understanding of the timeline and the parameters of how the auction works, and then when are do we know who the winners are, so to speak?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, the auction was launched last Wednesday. Last Friday we published the terms of reference and the draft of the contract that will be awarded. Now we have a period of Q&A and clarifications until the 4th of December. The 4th of December will be publishing the definitive terms of reference and the contract. Then the projects will have until the 30th of December to submit their offers. That will be backed by a guarantee of the seriousness of the offer. I believe you call it assurance guarantee. Surety guarantee. And then we will take a full month to evaluate the offers, and I will explain in a minute why we'll take a full month. Also within that month, we will be having conversations with the participants that submitted the best offers. And the expectation is that the 1st of February, we will be signing contracts with the best offers.
Great.
That for the timeline. As for the parameters, I think it's a very innovative tender that we have launched. If I were to describe it in one word, I would call it flexible. Because what we tried to do here was to launch a tender process that would be the dream of a project.
Okay.
That's what we tried to devise, the dream of the project. Why we wanted to devise the dream of the project? Because we believe that if we devise the dream of the project, we will be rewarded in price. The more flexible the projects are in developing their offers, the more likely they will offer a better price. So what this results in, the project can choose the length of the contract between 5 years and 25 years. I'm not saying it doesn't exist because I don't know all the auctions in the world, but I haven't seen it.
Right.
Normally it comes with a fixed term for all the projects. Even the one of the government auction of Colombia was 15 years. The one in Mexico was 15 years. In Brazil they have been 15 and 18 years. I believe Argentina was 15 years, and we're saying you can go up to 25 years if you want,
Well, great.
or down to 5, right? Why? The more years of contract you have in a financial model, or rather, the more years of income that you have in a financial model that are backed by a contract, the higher the debt sizing of a project.
Right,
when
the
they show
better,
it
the
to a
easier the
bank.
financing becomes.
Exactly, and the cheaper also, we believe that. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it is the project that tells us when they want to start the contract. When is the plant operative?
Great.
And we gave a range between 2022 and 2025, provided it is the first day of any semester.
Okay.
We did that because what we want as energy suppliers is certainty of when the energy will become available.
Right.
Because otherwise we'll have to go to the spot market.
Right.
And we believe that if we set a date for all the projects, everybody will do their best effort to be able to be eligible for the auction. But the most likely result would have been that the projects would have been late. They would have had a delay in construction because they already push the times as much as they could to be able to participate in the auction.
This way they can tell you how much time they need, but they have to commit to their word.
Exactly.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I think that's great because you have projects that are at different stages of construction, and it allows them to breathe easier and say, look, we know we can have it done 80% by this time, but we know we can have it done by this time. Let's go ahead and say when we can have it ready, and that way they can still participate and not miss out. If they need to set their time frame, if they're ready to go now, great. If they need 18 more months to go, great. They can still participate right now. And this certainty, because if they enter into a successful bid and a successful arrangement, then it makes their financing easier and, like you said, less expensive.
Exactly, that's exactly right. And even if they commit to the word, we still give them 12 months to be delayed, provided they deliver us the energy, because there are financial contracts. Right. But we won't be executing guarantees for a period of 15 months.
Got it.
Our idea is not to execute a guarantee. We want the energy and we want the project operating.
Right. And to have a sustainable model that you can have this, success after success and show that it works, and then that allows you to grow and to do more of them.
Exactly. Another important feature of the auction that I believe is also very innovative is that if the project wishes to, we will buy any surplus energy it generates.
Great.
So the contract is a pay or take, but if they want, we can buy any surplus energy they supply. We have some incentives so that the surplus energy is not too big, because again, if it's too big, we cannot plan.
Right.
So there are some price incentives that they try to make it as most, or at least 90% of the energy they produce into the pay or take or pay, right? And then we'll be buying any surplus energy at a discount. And if the surplus becomes too big, we will buy in at a discount against the spot price. So that way we almost guarantee we have sold it in advance anyway.
Right. And also that gives them some certainty in that they know that they have a market for their excess production.
Exactly, because normally what happens here in Colombia is that when the projects go to the banks and say, look, this is my PPA, this is my forecast revenue, and I have some excess energy that I'm going to sell in the spot market, normally what they do is they discount that from the model. Right. Because there's a certainty of revenue. Whereas here, they at least have the contract to argue the case that they can have more revenues and thus a larger debt sizing and more finance.
And I think that all what you're doing is really serving as an enabling vehicle that not only are you creating demand for their product and a demand that they can count on, but again, it comes back to the finance. And if you think about project financing, I was reading the book on that just came out on the how Viva Air got started on the way over here, and it was interesting because at the beginning, there were all these caveats and guarantees, and it's like, well, to get your airplanes, you first have to get your certifications. To get your certifications, you've got to have your airplanes, you got to get your financing. And it's difficult at the beginning when you're in that phase of construction phase or whatever, that when you're not generating energy yet, or you're not flying passengers around yet, or whatever the case is, the cost of financing and the ease of financing becomes so critical. Technoglass, another company in the news, Colombian company in the news, they just refinanced, they just did a $300 million financing package that reduces their interest expense by something like $11 million a year. And again, when they're able to demonstrate, whether it be you go by asset backed or backing revenue flows or whatever, but still that cost, it's not even when sometimes it's not an issue of yes, there's financing, or no, there's not financing, but the cost of the financing that's available can make a project no longer make sense. As you know, I know you're a CFA. Nobody knows that better than a financial analyst, right? You know. Well. And so I think that's why it's so innovative what you guys are doing here, and hopefully it's a model that can be duplicated and that can be replicated. How can people? Obviously, in Finance Colombia, we're going to continue to cover what you're doing closely. But what's the company website? I've gotten confused in the past, and I've tried to find Renovatio in Colombia, but I know that there's like a parent or associated companies, and I've ended up in Romania and Portugal. So how do people find out specifically about Renovatio here in Colombia?
Grupo Renovatio.com.